Howdy, High Tides. I'm Jed Hoffman at Beach Film News. Before we start with the segments, here's a quick advertisement. Roll it.
Friday, May 21st, 4 p.m. Beach Film News YouTube channel live film festival. Don't forget. Live.
Did you guys know that the host of the film festival will be me? Make sure you tune in May 21st at 4 p.m. to check that out on the Beach Film News YouTube channel. Now, also, the atmosphere of the film festival should be electric, just like this piece about electric scooters.
Mobilization by vehicle transportation has been a part of everyone's lives for a very long time, but it's mostly in the beginning of the 21st century where the development of electrically motorized cars, mopeds, and motorcycles are being expressed in bulk production in order to revert the growth of greenhouse gases, which in turn cause global warming. The special electrically motorized vehicle that serves as the topic of discussion today is the Revo moped, and Revo is an electrical mobility company that designs vehicles capable of charging and ready to use for common folk. Beginning with features of the actual moped or scooter, they can be driven up to 30 miles per hour max and go as far as 60 miles before needing a recharge at a super hub, which is a station that's able to charge any brand of electric car. With each rental, 2 helmets are provided for free, and to actually drive these scooters, all a person needs is an active driver's license. That's it. Things to know about this development is that the company Revo have actually managed to operate 6,000 electric mopeds in major cities such as Miami, Washington, D.C., San Francisco, Oakland, and so forth. This has made them a very preferred alternative to public transportation, especially in COVID crisis. The mopeds themselves were actually manufactured by the Chinese company NIU, and they sell for about $3,000 to $5,000 each if a person wants to own one. Access to them is mostly inclusive within the U.S., with company headquarters being in Brooklyn, New York. As for the price charging rates, after agreeing to membership terms and conditions, it only takes $1 to start up the ride, and every minute from there is about 25 cents. There's also a pause feature that immensely lowers the rate in the case that you will use the moped shortly after you park it, for an occasion on foot. The insurance policy, depending on the state, is full third-party liability coverage for up to $25,000 per person and $50,000 per accident, with up to $10,000 in property damage as well. A very significant issue with the actual moped that has been poked at in the past decade was the concept of safety. A lot of collisions weren't something new when the scooters were just being introduced, and the deaths of a select few placed heavy emphasis on bolstering safety training and education for riders willing to partake on this mode of transportation. With a heavy bike that is able to go 30 miles per hour, accidents were practically impossible to avoid initially. With the help of the company's hired customer service teams and field technicians, though, it is assured that every bike produced and returned are not faulty and are prepped for the next rider.
Electric scooters are a thing of the future, but what about the past? Now it's time for This Week in History.
Good morning, High Tides. Let's get back to This Week in History. To start this week's more historical segment, on May 17th, 1769, George Washington launches a legislative salve at Great Britain's fiscal and judicial attempts to maintain its control over the American colonies, with his sights set on protesting the British policy of taxation without representation. Washington brought a package of non-importation resolutions before the Virginia House of Burgesses. To follow that, on May 18, 1860, Abraham Lincoln, a one-time U.S. representative from Illinois, is nominated for the U.S. presidency by the Republican National Convention meeting in Chicago, Illinois. Hannibal Hamlin of Maine was nominated for the vice presidency. After that, on May 21st, 1932, female aviator Amelia Earhart became the first pilot to repeat a transatlantic flight, landing her plane in Ireland after flying across the North Atlantic. Earhart traveled over 2,000 miles from Newfoundland in just 15 hours. And to conclude this week's segment, on May 20th, 1873, San Francisco businessman Levi Strauss and Reno, Nevada tailor Jacob Davis are given a patent to create work pants reinforced with metal rivets, marking the birth of one of the world's most famous garments, blue jeans. Well, High Tides, that's it for this week in history. Make sure to check in for the next one, and I will see you later.
If you ever go camping, make sure you don't run into any bears. Here's a piece about camping.
Welcome to my video. I hope you find this helpful. These are the things that you're going to need to go camping with. First, a tent that you will buy depending on how many people you're camping with. In this case, I bought a 4-people tent because I usually camp with 4 people. The next thing that you'll need is a sleeping bag, and depending on where you're going to go camp is what sleeping bag you're going to need. If it's cold, buy a sleeping bag that's for the cold weather. If it's going to be hot, you need to buy a sleeping bag that's for the hot weather. The next thing that you'll need is a pad. This pad will be used as a bed that will isolate you from the floor so you're comfortable while you sleep. Finally, you'll need your personal belongings that will go in this bag that you will bring to go camping. And you'll just add in your repellent against all the mosquitoes and anything that could bite you. One last important thing that you'll need is your clothes. A long sleeve shirt that will protect you from the sun and from the mosquitoes. And a pair of fresh shorts that will keep you comfort, and slip-resistant shoes for hiking.
Now let's start building a tent. So here we spread both sides out just like that to open up the tent. So here we start pulling the corners a little so we can space it out more, spread it out more, so we can have space to pull in the poles. Here we have the poles we're going to use to build up the tent. It's always useful to use another partner in this part of building the tent, but if you're building the tent alone, that's okay. You can do this part by your own. Here you can see up close how we pull in the pole through the hole across the whole tent. And now we use another pole to push across another hole. And with these 2 poles across the whole tent is what we're going to use to build up the tent. And here I'm using my partner again because you need to pull the poles up just like that. And it's always better to do this with a partner. Now in order to have the poles secured to the tent, we need to push the pole through that stake. And right here we pull once again every corner of the tent so everything's spread out nicely. And now we just grab those little clips and clip them to the poles so it's way more secure.
We're done with the most important part, and we have the door where we want it, but we're still missing one thing. We need to secure the tent to the ground.
Now in order to secure the tent to the ground, we need to grab this metal stick and push it diagonal in that hole. Now this needs to be really tight, and if you can't do it with your hand, use your shoe, it's way better.
The last thing the tent will need is a roof that will protect you from the sun and from the rain.
Now we're gonna grab the clip that extends from the roof and attach it to those holes to secure the roof to the tent. Right here we're gonna grab the last pole and just stick it all the way through the roof and put it inside little holes that are in both ends. Of course, we all have different type of tents which we build differently, but these are just basics. So I hope this was helpful, and happy camping!
Now it's time for only 3 people's favorite segment, Second Opinion. Last week we asked you, the viewer, will you get the vaccine if offered to you right now? The answer, yes. Over 80% of you said yes. This week's question is, will you tune in for the Mega Cool Film Festival, which is happening this Friday, May 21st at 4 p.m.? Either scan that QR code or check out the link in the description. Well, with Beach Film News, I have been Jed Hoffman. You have been you. Later, skater.